I'd like to bring up our next two guests, and they are Ari Emanuel and Patrick Whitesell, the co-CEOs of WME Entertainment. Patrick, good to see you. I'm going to shake my hand. How are you, Ari? Good to see you. Thanks a lot, guys, for coming and for patiently waiting in the wings. You probably know who these guys are. They run, what's likely the most powerful agency in Hollywood or the world, and it's an incredibly dynamic place with a client list that blows me away. I mean, Patrick,
you're one of them.
Yes, that's true. That I should disclose that.
Yeah.
Boy, I forgot about that. That's a real conflict of interest here, isn't it? Thank you
Depending on the questions.
Yeah, well, actually, I'm not a very good client, am I?
No, you're good.
Yeah, that's right. Anyway, can you mention some of your clients, you guys? Because it's just a pretty awesome list.
Go
ahead.
Well, it's Larry David, Marty Scorsese, Michael Moore, Sacha Baron Cohen, Adam Sandler, Matt Damon, Charlize, Lady Gaga. You want to keep on going?
Yeah, no, I think it's, we're, in the movie business, we have probably a good majority of, or a good chunk of the movie stars that you've seen, or the people behind the cameras, as Thomas was talking about. And in television, I think just the majority of probably the shows that people watch in this room, I think.
If they watch TV here.
So 30 Rock and The Office and Entourage, and so we have a real dominant kind of television business. In the touring business, do book over about 25,000 tours a year, and it's all types of music from Lady Gaga to, country western music, Brad Paisley, or hip hop, or so it's a real kind of big cross section.
Right. You guys merged Endeavor with William Morris about 15 months ago. Ari, I want to throw this to you. And let me just ask you, what was the point of the deal? What were you trying to do, and how's it going?
Well, as you guys have out in this crowd have all ruined our lives a little bit. Patrick and I, probably about 7 years ago, looked at the world and said, there's going to be, when we had Endeavor, there's going to be more distribution than ever. And that if we believe that content is king, when we were at Endeavor, we had two big pockets. We had the television business and the movie business. And the premise was that we needed more content as the world expanded on the distribution side. And that our leverage inside that conversation would become greater as the world kept on expanding on the distribution side. If you just took television, in '95 when we started Endeavor, there was 4 networks. If you look at it now, it's an ungodly amount of television being consumed, and even a greater amount of television being consumed. So when we looked at it, we could add a publishing, an author business, a theater business, a lecture business, and a music business. And then as we pushed in on the conversation as it relates to distribution, we would have a different seat at the table. And then off of that, as distribution changes, whether it be in social media, et cetera, how we used our branded content and how we have the conversation in the traditional manner into the expanding kind of world of content and how you define content gave us more leverage. So that was the basis for it.
Okay. So Patrick, how's it going with the new model? And you hear a lot of people saying that, the old Hollywood model, the whole Hollywood agent model is dead. What does that mean, and what are you guys doing to get out of that trap?
Well, first of all, I don't think the old model, or if that's what you call it, is dead. we are probably doing as more television. Our traditional businesses, we're doing probably more television work than we've ever done. The movie business, is, as Thomas mentioned, is not going away. There's 1.3 billion tickets sold 10 years ago. There'll probably be 1.3 billion sold in 10 more years. So the film and television business and music actually, the byproduct of the changes there, acts have to tour more. So our core business and what we've done for a long time hasn't changed a lot. I think where you're seeing the biggest change is the type of people we represent has expanded. The people who are going to come up here, you're going to see a little bit, are clients of ours. The idea you can take a company like Hasbro that is a toy manufacturer and create them, and they now can become intellectual property and creators of movies, and also own a television channel or cable channel. That can happen, right? And I think as you'll see the next phase, which Ari's talking to, is as the economics start making people that we represent incentivized to do branded content for the web, you'll see that content get really good. So as you start seeing the marriage of our people with people like Demand Media and Richard, or Anthony Borquez and Grab and social gaming, and you start seeing the people that we represent starting to play in those areas, then you're going to see the content and how it and the spike of the quality of content go up. So what Ari and I are trying to do with the company is to position ourselves and our clients for those opportunities, and I think that is a kind of new model.
I mean, one of the things we have to do, kind of going into the future, and I think everybody, it's a requirement, is the definition of content. What I defined it as 20 years ago, 15 years ago, has completely shifted. So what Patrick says, you know, what the Demand Media is doing or anybody else is doing as it relates to content, that is a form of content. What we're doing with LinkedIn and a bunch of our authors, right, and what we've talked to you about, that is a form of content. The important thing for people on our side of the business is, one, we have to stay curious, and we have to kind of keep on changing as the needs for content and the different forms of content start to change. And then utilize what we believe are people that actually know how to tell stories and know how to express themselves that other people are interested in, and find distribution for them. That will be our task into the future. I don't know if you can write an algorithm for that, but I do think there's a place for it. And you know, the big question and the push-pull in this environment is how people enable people on our side of the ledger to get paid, while permitting an open source to everything. And I think it's incumbent on the two kind of areas of California to get to that conversation, so that there can be expansion in their business model, but it can't erode our business model. And I think that's a very big issue that we're getting to. Everybody's discussing. I don't think the answer is there yet, though.
Yeah, it sounds like I don't know if I'd hear Ari Gold talk about this, right? I don't think he's quite up to this.
Well, I mean, if somebody said, there's a lot of 4-syllable words here, and there hasn't been any 4-letter words here, there will be on this panel.
Right, good, okay. We'll separate the television personality from, right. It's interesting because when you talk about the two Californias, I've seen that a lot, and that's also sort of the New York versus San Francisco and LA versus San Francisco, content versus distribution and technology. Hollywood has, what I was talking about at the beginning, I think has always followed. We talked about the film, the TV, and radio. But, you're seeing, the Ashton Kutcher, people laughed, it's for real, what he does. I think Will Ferrell, you saw what Matt Damon and Ben Affleck have been trying to do, and now what you guys are trying to do. Is there a new feeling in Hollywood that you guys just aren't sitting there and waiting for stuff to hit you, that you guys are getting to be more proactive with technology? Do you think, Patrick?
Well, I think the one thing that most of our clients are curious about, and where we spend a lot of time talking about the answer to, is they drive a lot of this activity on Twitter or on Facebook, and mostly it's disruptive to their lives. There's a few people who embrace it, and relish it, but a lot of people, and with Us Weekly or whatever it is, most of it's invasive, but it drives all these economics for other people, not themselves. And so we spend a lot of time, we know what their value is to consumers, we know what they are to the advertisers. So the next step for us is to, okay, how can they economically benefit from those things that are out there and are happening? And I think that's probably the biggest thing that comes up for us right now. And then secondly, how do you take all of that information and activity and drive it back to their movies and to their properties? And those two things, and our ability to kind of figure that out with the advertisers, I think is going to be a real big business for us.
Right. Do you guys like to talk to people like Dennis and at Foursquare, and how can you bring entertainment ideas to Foursquare? I mean, that must be a really cool brainstorming conversation. You're talking about.
Well,
LinkedIn.
we just had a pretty big and a continuous conversation with LinkedIn. We're doing it with other people, as Patrick pointed out. So from our perspective, there's some content. There was that big article. And today in the New York Times, and I think in Wired this week, about is it a apt world, or we're constantly in this conversation. There's some clients that need to be in that conversation, and then there's some clients that just Larry David could give a shit, right? He's making Curb, that's what he's doing, and it doesn't matter to him. There's other people like the Lady Gagas and other clients that is an important conversation that they want to explore. From our perspective, as Patrick said, we think we have clients that move product and move economics and how we monetize their relationship with the consumer through distribution is going to be where we think there's going to be innovation for a bunch of our clients, and where there's a monetization formula for a bunch of clients, or a bunch of distribution that might not have economics underneath them that kind of work right now.
You and I were talking about that story you just mentioned in the New York Times today. I think it was an excerpt from a book, I believe, that Nick Bilton is putting with a 2, 4, 10. Did you all see that? About how content will be consumed from 2 feet, 4 feet. And
search it on Google.
Right, and yes, very well, nicely played. That your mobile is your 2 feet, your computer screen is 4 feet, and your TV is 10 feet. And that, of course, they're not going to all drive each other out of existence, and you have to play across all the platforms. And I thought it was kind of
I thought it was pretty good article.
What about about live events and on the internet? I mean, are you guys, is that ever going to happen, or having on demand on the internet or live events on the internet? We were talking about that as well, Patrick. That seems to be kind of far off. Is that something you consider at all?
I think that is far off. I don't think that's an immediate, I don't think the economics around that are immediate. I think what you are seeing, just an example, I just came from the Toronto Film Festival, and what that's been dying is the independent movies have had a hard time getting out there and being seen, because in the old model, with all the windows taking so long, the marketing dollars and to try to find an audience has gotten harder and harder. And actually, cable television has really hurt it, because a lot of great dramas are on television, so it's eroded the movie-going audience. But what you're seeing now is that the VOD model for independent film is a great thing, because what's happened is it allows the economics of guaranteeing someone distribution and advancing them some money against a theatrical distribution, as long as there's a quick window into the VOD, allows more people to see it, everybody to make more money, and therefore you're seeing consequently in Toronto, we just sold 2 movies that probably wouldn't have, well, they may have been sold, but they certainly wouldn't have been sold what they got sold for. Mm-hmm. So I think in some ways you're going to see, kind of this, the collapsing of windows, and the big movies, it's going to be longer, and it shouldn't be. But I think a lot of the more niche film, I think it's going to be a good thing, and you're starting to see that. And I think that's going to be the most fascinating thing to me when I look at the 4 primary studios of News Corp and Disney and now Comcast, and who did I miss?
Warner.
Yeah, of course. But they all have slightly different kind of agendas. But I think that you're going to see them all kind of play around with this windowing, and I think that'll be a good thing.
Talking about products, so I have to talk about product placement, and that's kind of a big topic these days. I was looking at Wall Street Money Never Sleeps, the second iteration of Wall Street, and I think they're in a bar, and I think once a gecko asked him, "Would you like a Heineken?" And Shia says yes, and it's just pretty blatant. I mean, you guys doing more and more of those kinds of conversations?
On television, in fact, coming on television, it is happening more and more. So we're having conversations with the WPPs. I mean, in our business model, we have a whole marketing advertising business that, as we see the business, that coupled with marketing is going to be a very important relationship. How we handle the big advertising agencies, I think is, they've built a distribution model that they have to execute. But we're having more and more conversations with advertisers every day, whether it be the P&Gs, the GMs of the world. Almost on a daily basis now you're having those conversations. In the television business and cable, in 2007 there was 30 scripted shows. Now there's 130, right? So it's not like that window is closing, it's expanding. There's more television being watched. The economics behind it are, on the network side, are stressed a little bit, but only, and during the recession, the ad rates were down, even though CPMs were going down. So I think the advertisers are going to be bigger players in this conversation, and they're pushing in on the relationship with the distribution model in the core business. So yes.
Are you guys surprised that there isn't actually more interactivity between television and the web? Because I remember talking to Ben Affleck and Matt Damon. They had this show called The Runner that they pitched. Remember?
The Foursquare show.
And
great show for Foursquare.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That was Foursquare before there was Foursquare. There was a guy set loose in America.
Rights are available. We'll talk to you about it.
And I don't know if you heard about this.
We'll just charge you $50. Okay.
That's good for him. And they turned this guy loose in America, and you had to find him. And the show would run once a week, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm kind of getting this maybe not so right. But then you could keep following the show online, and he would appear in a donut shop in Paducah, and then people would go. And I believe that ABC said they would do it, but their lawyers
After 9/11.
Well, 9/11 actually
nixed it
killed
because
Yeah.
right because so there were security concerns, or people
Yeah.
people were also scared they were going to shoot the guy when they
Yeah.
find him to get a prize, and it sort of had some
Yeah.
problems. But anyway, you could see the potential to do these things, and I think Lost has done some of this
Yep.
stuff where you could crowdsource plot changes. I'm just surprised that there's not more of that going on. Is that something you guys think?
I think now it's actually, I think it's, you can for the first time really have the conversation. I think The Runner was a little bit ahead of its time. It's a great idea, but I don't think you could actually execute it the way you could now. But I think you will see more of that, and I think you're going to see it in social gaming particularly. I think that's an area where whether it's woven into the narrative of a television show or it's just your celebrities driving traffic to that and participating and coming in and out of the game with you, I think that's going to be an exciting place too.
Yeah.
Does anyone have any questions? I've got a bunch more to ask these guys, but if anyone wants to, just maybe pop up to the mic. Here we have a brave soul making his way over. You go.
A lot of news about the LeBron show that you guys packaged. Maybe you want to talk to us a little bit about that and implications going forward?
I have no implications going forward. It came out of sitting at the game with his manager, and I think they're probably going to win down in Miami. How about that? That's a prediction for you.
What the hell was that? Very
Right.
good.
But what I mean, I sold the show.
That's good.
Yeah.
All right, talk it up a little bit.
Advertisers are very happy.
Let me ask you about another thing that you may be involved with a little bit that might be
ESPN's happy too. Yeah. No.
Just as interesting, or maybe even more interesting to this audience, which is The Social Network, the movie about Facebook. And I believe Mr. Sorkin is a client of yours. So can you talk a little bit more about that? Because that seems kind of
It opens the New York Film Festival on the 23rd. I think the movie is, I'm hoping the studio doesn't do any advertising because I think it's just going to work on its own. And I think probably the people at Facebook are a little nervous. How about that?
That was good. What's that?
I don't think so. I think the movie's, listen, I'm a character on a show. It's been pretty good for me. I think it's going to be pretty good for them.
Let's do that.
Okay?
Yeah.
You fuckers want me here.
Now that's the Ari we know. Now we got Ari going. All right. How do you put up with this, Patrick?
It's hard for him.
12 years.
Yeah.
Right, 12 years. That's good. Nicely done. Okay. Good. So I wanted to ask you, I was talking to you about this earlier, about any more questions, please feel free to just pop
I
up.
dare you. No, go on.
That was pretty brutal. You got no one after that. You're just like, quiet. The global nature of what you do. Easy?
Yeah.
Him with him. All right.
Yeah.
Are you surprised that is the movie business or the entertainment business more or less global than you would have thought, say, 10 years prior? If I had asked you in 2000 or 1990?
Well, it's definitely more. I think but I don't think 10 years ago you saw it coming. It's the international marketplace in the film business is bigger than the domestic, so that's not a surprise. I think what you're now seeing though is actually studio. There's film finance companies all over the world that now we actually cover like we do Warner Brothers or Universal, and we go to them to kind of make, and that never would have happened. One. Also, two is, it used to be that you would always take, if you had your best content or your best ideas, always to the studios first. Mm-hmm. And now, you still obviously will do that a lot of times, but weirdly enough, as if you want to bifurcate rights and hold back more of the control, and when you're really hot hand, you actually want to take it to the studio last. Something we talked to Thomas about a lot, where you would maybe partner with someone and then go to them at the very end just for domestic distribution. So that part of it's changed, and there's a lot of more people wanting to get into the movie business. I think it's smarter money though, and it used to be a lot of people would get into the film business particularly just for vanity reasons, and now people more and more are serious about making money and building a proper business model, and so yeah, I'd say it's definitely.
Internationally, also, like in France, they're making English movies, but they're paying for them just for their market.
Mm-hmm.
It's great right now.
Some of those French banks have had some bad experiences in Hollywood, if we can think back a little bit.
Yep.
Yeah. Let me just follow up a little bit and talk about the two of the biggest markets in the world, which are equally, they're interesting but both problematic for different reasons, which are India and China. Do you guys do a lot of business in China? It's such a difficult place to do IP work, though, right? I know our company, Time Warner, has a very difficult time conducting business. You know, our films just get pirated right away, and we kind of say, you know what, we're just not going there. What do you guys think?
Well, there's some in India. A lot of the animation, also in China, kind of coming out of their innovation and production houses. A lot of the studios have moved Sony, Fox on the television side there and making some local movies. I think there's probably some constraints on the economics as it relates to getting money out of China, but they're all trying to figure that out. So.
Can you do stuff in India with? You hear about Bollywood, but as far as I can tell, there's like Bollywood and Hollywood. One or two huge movies being exceptions. But is there any connectivity there? Not so much.
Not so much, really. There was a big announcement about all these deals they made with talent a few years back,
Right.
where they made kind of production deals. But in Hollywood, what are called second look deals. So what happens is if you're a producer in Hollywood and you have a deal with the studio, you make what's called a first look deal or an exclusive deal, but normally a first look deal where they'll pay you some overhead, and your only obligation is you got to bring them all your ideas there first. And then if they don't want them, you pass on them, then you can take them to everywhere else in town. They made, most of those deals were second look deals. So a second look deal doesn't really have a lot of teeth in it, because usually if something's really great, it's usually been sold the first time. And then if your only obligation is to take it to them the second time. So it was a big announcement, but I don't think a lot of movies have come out of it yet, because it doesn't,
How many people in Silicon Valley would do second look deals? Not a lot. So.
Interesting. Right. Yeah. Good point. Why is it that people, and we got to wrap things up here in a minute. Why is it that people are always saying, the Hollywood studios are dead? Oh, they're dinosaurs, and yet, they keep lingering on. They seem more powerful than ever. Always hear about the wave of independent studios, and those actually are the ones that ended up, I think, kind of getting killed over the past 10 years, right? How does the whole?
I think the studios are not. The film side, they certainly aren't dead by any means. I think that the biggest challenge they've had is the variety of movies they can make has been challenged. I think if you're Warner Brothers, and Thomas works with them, but they were making 2 tentpole movies a year. Now they make 8, I think, right? And that's where they make the lion's share of their money. Or if you're Disney, you want a movie that kind of you can monetize through off all your platforms,
Right.
the theme parks, the
Hear that.
merchandising, to ESPN,
Right.
ABC, so whatever it is. So that constraint causes a little bit of a challenge for them, because everybody has this idea that people who work at studios don't want to make creative, original movies. They do. It's just the economics get so expensive that it puts them in somewhat of a box.
You're sitting there, everybody thinks the movie business is movie business. Movie business is DVD business. Mm-hmm. And with Netflix and their economics, and then the economic downturn and what happened at Walmarts of the world, the economic underpinnings of the business kind of started to implode, so that's why they reduced. I do think, though, technology is going to, and it's, as Patrick said, on the independent side, those two elements and how you deal with the Netflix issue as it relates to DVDs. When Warner Brothers held back 26 days, you saw the DVD numbers spike. So when you look at the movie business is a DVD business. Mm-hmm. It's not the theatrical drives it, but it really is the economics behind the business is there. And that is challenged right now. Until those things kind of, VOD, Blu-ray, all those things start coming back because of the economy, I think they're still going to be challenged for a while.
And it's interesting, we hadn't talked about Netflix, an amazingly successful and adaptive company, right?
Yeah.
So how are they being so successful right now if that business is so weak?
Well, because it's a subscription business.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And then they're building out other models on the VOD side and on the pay side. So.
And the business isn't weak. Here's the thing: is that what happened was when a studio would make a movie and they'd underwrite their costs, they would budget in what they thought it would do on a DVD sale. Mm-hmm. And so when you have a movie, you would much rather have someone buy it than rent it. At least it's currently the current model. Netflix doesn't care about that. They're not underwriting the movie, right?
Right.
So they're just in the rental business. And what they did was they got aggressive about online and taking kind of their mail system to online, and some kind of moved there faster. And they've just done a great job of that. But I think, you may read somewhere Netflix has a ton of rental sales. That may or may not be great news to the studio.
Right, right. And it's interesting, we were talking about, TV and the internet, and I was saying, we're still a long way from being able to watch live TV on the internet. There are people in this room I know who are going to disagree with me, but for the average consumer, especially with sports, or sitting there at home without a TV, it's hard to watch an NFL game or an NCAA college football game still on TV. So there's still ways to go with that. Just last question, Ari, about just a TV question. So do you see TV people who make independent television production companies, are they thinking about making shows for the web the same way they are about making shows for television?
Well, there's no independent scripted business. Really independent business is in the reality side.
Right.
And I think it will be the kind of driver that you have multiple plays on it, right? Where storyline can end up on the web and come back to the reality show. So I think that's where it will start and that's where it will happen. Eventually there'll be a scripted show that really kind of incorporates all the elements of what's great about the web or apps or games or whatever, and the normal scripted storyline.
Right, I mean, you see people trying it, like
I
Barry
think it's
Diller
going
shows.
to start. I think it's first going
Right?
to start on reality.
Right, okay. All right, we're going to have to leave it at that. Please join me in thanking Patrick Weitzel and Ari Emanuel. Thanks, Patrick. Thanks, Dave.